Some will argue that the supreme sound of the 1970s is the wah-wah guitar. You know it. It's the waka-chicka, waka-chicka, waka-chicka.
It gives like a walking thing. You're always kind of feeling a move, groove, you know. It's kind of weird. They did something amazing when they made that.
David Whitaker says the supreme 70s sound is about slapping.
The sound of the 70s came from the bass.
And yet, some will argue the top musical invention of the 70s comes in the form of keys. Patrick Moraz met us at the Synthesizer Museum of Winter Park. In the 70s, Moraz played keys for the bands Yes and the Moody Blues. He's got several solo albums on his long resume, plus an amazing DVD coming out this summer on which he plays 23 keyboards, all live, back in 1979 when there were no computers on stage.
I would call it adventurous.
It being the evolution of the electronic black and whites, the king of them all, the Moog synthesizer. Moraz consulted for Dr. Bob Moog in the early days.
Sometimes in concerts, the oscillators used to, especially in the 70s, they used to, in open-air concerts, they used to freeze and it was cold. So the oscillator was going, you know, like... So we constantly had to retune them.
Moraz is equally gifted on another 70s icon, the Fender Rhodes.
Very rich sound.
Things began to get really funky in the 70s with the clavinet. Stevie Wonder still plays it today, often heard on disco records. And so is another gizmo that Moraz was not a big fan of at first, the drum machine.
You had to change the buttons and the levers as you went along.
You too can change the buttons and levers on dozens of 70s drum machines. The Synthesizer Museum's website is fantastically interactive. Playing these virtual versions is just like being in the museum. So keep an ear out for retro sounds on today's music. Bands are getting back to using vintage instruments and sounds, but the true question is, are they doing so in concert?
Most of them on the stage can play that music, but we don't know anymore if it's the real instrument or if it's the sample.
In Winter Park, David Martin, Fox 35 News.